Hello, good evening. Hi. Welcome to the Parrish Art Museum. My name is Corinne Ernie. I'm the Deputy Director of Curatorial Affairs here at the Parrish. And it is my distinct pleasure to be speaking to Denise Silva-Dennis tonight. Welcome, Denise. And you look beautiful as always. So Denise is our 2022 Parrish Road Show artist. And I just want to give a little overview of what Parrish Road Show is. It's our annual exhibition series that takes art outside of the walls of the parish and into the communities. Every year we invite regional artists to choose a place of their liking. It has to be a public space, either a park or a highway or a cultural center or someplace where the community can go and enjoy the art. And usually I also like to challenge the artists to, especially if they are two-dimensional, they usually work two-dimensionally, to really work site-specific, to think about the place that they are in and engage with that place through their art. So there's a few people I would like to thank who make these programs possible. So the Parrish Road Show this year was made possible by Eastern Scaffolding, as well as Jane Wesman and Dawn Savelson. And a special thanks goes to the Sisters of St. Joseph in Hampton Bays. And that's where the work is located. We will talk about that in a minute. And I would also like to thank the Friday night sponsors, that's Bank of America, Weill Cornell Medicine, Southampton, and the Corcoran Group. So I would like to begin with introducing Denise. We've known each other for quite some time. I know you as an artist. I also know you as an educator, and you've been on our education committee, so there has been, quite an exchange. And when we started talking about the Parrish Road Show, I came to visit you, and we were thinking about what you would want to do for the roadshow, and we landed on a mural. Can you take us through that process a little bit, and then we may want to look at the work, and I'm sure you have a lot to say about that. Wiggle it, yeah.
It's nice and secure.
It is.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here tonight, Corinne. Thank you for the invitation to be part of the Road Show, and especially since it's Native American History Month, so it's very nice to be here in November to celebrate that as well. So when you came to visit, you and Brianna, on Shinnecock, you came to where I do my work and my workshop, and then we went and toured the reservation a little bit, and we took you over to where another mural is on Shinnecock.
Right.
So that is part of our Shinnecock Community Center, and that tells the story of our history based in Shinnecock, starting with the Corn Mother. Whaling is involved there, the traditional places that we lived, in wickiups, wigwams. Our men were working out on the seas, harpooning whales, while the women were taking care of the villages and the children and growing the corn, beans, and squash. Then it went on through the history of the Circassian, things that happened to us, historical trauma that happened to us in the 1800s with a ship that had gone down. And so many of our men, they were grandfathers and fathers and brothers and sons who had perished in that occurrence. And then it goes on to the one-room schoolhouse that we once had on Shinnecock, as well as our church and some other important places on the reservation. So once you saw that, you were like, oh, we wanted to do a mural. That sounds like a great thing to do.
Yeah, I like the idea of permanence. I like the idea of storytelling and of artwork to actually remain in a place of importance, especially to you, to the Shinnecock Nation. And then we started the conversation with Sister Carrie Handel. So a big thank you to Sister Carrie Handel as well. And I also want to mention Brianna Hernandez, who is our curatorial fellow, who was working very closely with with Denise on this project. So, so let's go from there. So, yeah, I was blown away by the mural. I thought this was a great idea, and we looked at a few places, or you looked at a few places where this could actually be created, and then maybe how did you come upon the Sisters of St. Joseph?
I came upon the Sisters of St. Joseph because there's already a connection with the sisters, with the Shinnecock kelp farmers, which is 6 Shinnecock women who are the farming the Shinnecock kelp, which is a type of seaweed that can be grown, and it will take out the nitrogen from Shinnecock Bay, which is so heavily polluted. So the sisters are already helping with that, sponsoring a site for that, and doing all kinds of support for the Shinnecock kelp farmers. And that includes my relatives, my sister, my niece who's in the audience, 2 nieces actually, and 2 of my cousins. So it's all women. And it kind of goes along the tradition of women, taking care of the homeland while the men traditionally either hunted for deer or other types of mammals on land, or, like I said, whaling or fishing, that type of thing.
It's interesting, and it's interesting that they connected with the Sisters of St. Joseph, so that's also all women taking care of, different kind of things. But should we look at some images from the mural?
Yes.
And anyway, so yeah, so we started talking to the sisters, and they offered a particular wall in one of their buildings.
Yes, yeah. Sister Carrie came up with the idea of having it on the dormitory wall. If you've ever gone over, or if you haven't gone, you should go over there. It's on 81 Lynn Avenue in Hampton Bays. To really go see it in person is different from actually seeing it on, through our media here. It gives you a little bit of a glimpse, but not every single little detail is included here. So when you go, you'll be able to see some other interesting things. I hope that they're interesting. But Sister Carrie was the one who said, there's one wall that I can think of, and on one side is the cross, and then the other side is the wall, and it's in like this perfect little enclave that protects it from the Shinnecock Bay winds and the ocean winds. And it was an outside mural, so while I was painting, sometimes it would rain. Hurricane Ian was on its way, and it wouldn't move out of our area for so long, so some of the days got cut short, so I had to include some people to come over and also help me, which which I also wanted to, say something about that. My husband came, my children came, and my cousins came over to help me.
So it became kind of like a community and family project in a way.
It did.
Yeah,
absolutely. So we'll go on, and I will just go on to, this is what the wall looked like beforehand, with a big bush on the bottom, and Sister Carrie made arrangements for that to be cut away. And it's actually 17 feet high and 14 feet across, and I had never done anything that high before. So that's why we had to make arrangements. I know Brianna worked a lot with that, and you also, Corinne, to have a scaffolding company come in. And so they came and checked it out and saw the dimensions and made a nice, safe scaffold for me, which is here.
Very important when you do works like that.
Yes. So it was really nice. I mean, in the body of scaffolds, it's like the best scaffold we had ever seen. My husband used to be a former painter, and he's like, wow, this is really a nice, safe scaffold. And sometimes 3 or 4 of us would be on different levels of it, painting away. And sometimes it would get quite windy on the top of that, and you couldn't really go up there. So then I'd stay in the middle and try to paint, and then sometimes it would get really hot as well.
I'm just curious about the process. Being faced with a big wall like that, did you do drawings? Did you figure out exactly ahead of time what you wanted to paint? Or did things change along the way, or both?
I wanted to do, once I saw the space, I thought, oh, this would be perfect to do a map, because I've always been interested in maps. I was a former teacher in the Southampton School District for 21 years, so I wanted to do history and art as well. So it just popped out into my mind to make a map, and I had been studying the maps through Gaynell Stone, had edited a book from Suffolk County, I think Anthropological Society. It's a book called Shinnecock Indians, and it has old maps in it, reproductions, and it was published in the 80s. So I wanted to take a part of that, and because we were in Hampton Bays and good ground, I wanted to incorporate what good ground, what Hampton Bays looked like before it has been developed.
So maybe I think the next image is one of those maps. And so it's interesting that the location actually inspired you for the kind of work that you wanted to do.
And then I counted the bricks. That was my process, to go there, take notes, do little sketches, do measurements, and then I did it on poster board first, counted how many bricks up, how many bricks across. Some of the bricks had different patterns in it, so I had, and some things had like light fixtures in there, so I had to account for all of these different objects, and challenges, I would say. But once I knew that I wanted to do a map, then images came to mind, and the figures that I have, which that's one of the things that I do as an artist anyway, figurative painting, I wanted them to be sort of like storytellers.
Right.
And from the old ancient storytellers all the way down to, let's see, let me just point this little baby down here to contemporary. I want our history to be a living history. So the same little baby that's there, and that's actually where the Sisters of St. Joseph Villa is on Lynn Avenue. The baby is in the audience now, so that's my great-nephew, Benjamin, who was my model to incorporate. That was the past, this is part of the future.
Perfect model. Can you talk a little bit about the various elements in the mural? Because they all tell a specific story and it all comes together.
Yes, I didn't want to go that far. Let me point out, all the way here is where Peconic Bay is, and then of course Shinnecock Bay, so it's accurate as far as where things are. And then I wanted to also incorporate Sugarloaf, because with the work of the Peconic Land Trust and John and Josh Halsey, we've been able to secure that area to bring it back. We're in the process of bringing it back to Shinnecock. It's an old burial ground that's very important.
That's on top of Shinnecock Hills, right?
It's the highest point in Shinnecock Hills. It's actually the highest point in the town of Southampton. And there was a house that was built on it in the 1990s, even though the people who bought the property knew that it was a burial ground, because Professor John Strong, who worked for many years at Southampton College, had lived in that area and had spoken to the purchasers and said, this is very sensitive property. And he did try to stop it along with others, but it went ahead and this house was built. And with the work that I do with Neomuk, I'm on the board of the Neomuk Land Trust, with other relatives, my nieces and cousins, we have been able to work together to secure Sugarloaf again. So the woman here, that's Rebecca Bunn Kellis, and she would retell stories, she's from Shinnecock, about what it was like when her grandmother would take her into the hills of the, Shinnecock Hills and visit relatives. Of course, we lost Shinnecock Hills in 1859, but she would tell those stories. She passed away long ago in the 30s. I never knew her, but I like, reading about her. She was the first school teacher of Shinnecock who taught in the one-room schoolhouse there. So she had many stories to tell. There's also, here's Canoe Place, and Neomuk the name of our organization, to get land back to Shinnecock means in our Algonquin language to lift up. So it's a lifting up of the canoes to connect them or carry them from Peconic Bay over to Shinnecock Bay, because there used to not be a canal there. It was the Shinnecock people who helped to dig out that canal, who did
Do you know
the
when
work.
that happened?
That happened in the 1800s.
Okay.
And we still have West Woods there. We still have that ownership of West Woods. We never lost that. And then here's another element. There's still the chapel over there on Lynn Avenue. If you ever go to Rumba's, you can see that little chapel on the right-hand side. It recently got moved from one place to another. But there were a lot of people who were buried there. And this person here was Abraham Cuffey. And he was a Shinnecock whaler. And he and his family, some of our relatives, were buried there. And actually that church was moved just a few years ago, before COVID. And, you know, sometimes I wonder, well, what happened to those graves when that church was moved, you know, just down the road? But part of the church, the reason why I have this little section here, that's part of our Shinnecock church. So the church that's on Shinnecock now is the oldest mission church in the United States of America. And it was moved across Shinnecock Bay by a team of horses, and that was back in the mid-1800s, and that's when Shinnecock Bay was clear water. It was fresh water, it was not salt water. It didn't become salt water until the 38 hurricane. That's another element I'm showing. You know, those maps, you'll see, you know, the real maps. They show Shinnecock Indians who lived here. There's the wickiups along the coast. And if you go down this road now, the paved road, it's Canoe Place. So if you go to, like sometimes when I go to Rumba's and I go to the end of the dock and I just look to my left and I see the beach and how it slopes down, and I could just close my eyes and just imagine what it was like to have the canoes ready to launch into the bay. And of course they would be going, here's a dugout canoe right here, and they'd launch out and they would go after these whales down here. These were called the right whale. That was actually the name of the whale, R-I-G-H-T, and those whales would actually beach themselves along the shore. And when the colonizers first came, they saw these whales coming in, and they saw the Shinnecock people going to get them and share all the meat and use all the resources, and it became commercial. And soon it became, you know, shipping and people traveling around the world to go after all kinds of different whales, because those right whales became fewer and fewer. So that was really America's first industry, commercial industry, that a lot of people don't realize before it was America, so it was the colonies back then.
And a lot of wealth here was built on whaling, right?
Yes, definitely, especially like Sag Harbor. If you go to or know of the house that's right near Rogers Memorial Library, and up on top it has what's called the Widow's Walk. And that's where the captain's wife would look out over the ocean from there up on that hill to see when the ship was coming in, hoping and praying that would come in, because sometimes everyone would be out there for a year or two going after these whales, traveling all over the world to South America and Africa and many different islands along the way. So they would always have a Shinnecock as a first mate. There would always be the Shinnecock people who would be on the little whaling boats that would be separate from the main boat to be the harpoon people, designated like that. So there's so much history that goes along that you just don't even really, you know, you don't learn about that. We don't learn about our, you know, local history right here in our own school district. You have to come to places like this to learn about it.
Right. And I find it really interesting that as an artist, you're telling a story of a place in that specific place. And I'm just curious to hear from you how you see your role as an artist in helping to telling the story, helping to educate people. And I'm trying to make that connection to what happened last year, as you said, when Sugarloaf was returned to the Shinnecock Nation. And how do you see your role as an artist and educator in helping to get land back?
Well, it's such a difficult premise for some
Yes.
people to take in, and I just always believe that art, whether it's photography or painting or some other medium, helps the person who's looking at it to learn in a way that's not that doesn't put someone on the defense. That it gives them a chance to soak it in, and then if I know my facts, if I study, my history, and I just believe in being a lifetime learner. There's always something that you can learn new about the history.
As we all should be. And I think art makes people curious, and when they see something beautiful like that, they want to know more about it.
Yes, and then it leads into the work that I do also, whether I'm meeting with a Peconic Land Trust or working with our Neomuk Land Trust, or even Graves Protection Warrior Society. It seems like as an artist, it's all connected. Sometimes you'll see maybe me and my family members, relatives from Shinnecock. We're trying to protect some of the burial grounds that are in Shinnecock Hills. So sometimes my role is to make posters that people hold to get that, get it out there, to let them know, this is our side of the story that maybe not be written in any books, or that's just overlooked. So art is a great vehicle to tell the history, tell a different perspective that maybe you've never heard of before, in just a way that can be taken in, if you choose to. You can walk away, you don't have to, you don't have to listen either, but at least it's there for the people who would like to know.
Exactly, and that's what makes it really valuable, and especially if it's in public space. So there's also not that barrier of having to go to a museum, but having it right there in the community for people to see and enjoy and learn. Do you want to tell us a bit more about how you made it, the material that the paint that you used, the process of making a mural? Because the other mural that you made in the cultural center, that's quite a while ago, and you I don't think you've made another mural since then, since you made this one.
No, I haven't made. I'm trying to think the order that I made them. I think I did make a mural.
Okay.
In between, and that's at the New York Telephone Company. I used to be a Zero operator in Southampton on Windmill Lane, but that's an inside mural. And it's in the conference room there. And that also starts out with the history of Shinnecock, and then it goes along with how it changed, with colonists coming in and farmland being developed and fences going up. And then the whole idea of, land. So it's Wunne Ohke, it's the good land. And for the Native American people's point of view, the land is our mother. So that's a whole nother area to discover, to learn about, and how we treat our mother. We take care of our mothers, as our mother's age or our father's age. Good children, do the best they can to care for them. And so that's the same thing that we want to do with our mother, whether our mother is part of Shinnecock Bay and we're trying to get the nitrates out, or we just want to protect it with not having plastic balloons flying in the air. So it's it speaks to everyone. We all have to live and breathe the same air, and and we all need to take care of it. So just the whole idea of land, with when the colonists first came and they had all these contracts for the native people to sign, and that was a reason why these maps were developed in the first place from the 1800s. The native people did not even understand what they were giving up. They just thought, in their hearts, oh, I'm going to share this land with you. And it's only like 2 miles away from here, the Parrish Art Museum on Meeting
Right.
House Lane. That was the first area that was open to the colonists once they came over, once our chief Noadana from Shinnecock led them over to this area. This is what you can have. We'll help you. We'll feed you. We'll clothe you. We'll give you safe shelter. And then by maybe 20 years later, fences go up. You're not allowed to come in here to dig for your ground nuts or, whatever is in the ground. You're not allowed to have access to the water anymore. And that's when the conflict happened, because it was supposed to be about mutual respect and sharing and taking care of each other.
Right, a totally different approach, to say the least, and something that happened throughout America,
Yes.
unfortunately. Do you want to speak more about your other practice? You are also a fashion designer. You do illustrations. How does it all come together for you as an artist?
Well, I do beadwork as well. So the
Right.
beadwork that I have, it's what I made actually for my daughter and then for my son for their regalia.
Right.
So that's part of it. And then I was just raised and immersed in it. I'm the youngest of 6 kids. So my older siblings, they taught me how to do a lot. My mom taught me how to do a lot with the sewing. Even my dad, he's from a whole nother reservation in Massachusetts, Hassanamisco. So it was all those different cultures of teaching me, what to do. So I just knew that when I was maybe 3 years old or 4 years old, that I would sit and look at my older brothers and sisters, like notes from high school. And I couldn't wait to have my own notebook and pen and paper, because I just knew that I could draw from a very young age. I hadn't even started drawing. I just knew that I could do it. And then I do the regalia. Halloween just passed, and there's a whole controversy about that. People dressing up as Native American people with costumes, and then sometimes people say to me, if I dress this way at a powwow or make some other special appearance with regalia on, oh, I like your costume. But costumes, that's all about making believe that you're someone. So that's a whole misappropriation of a culture. You shouldn't really be doing it.
So it's another opportunity to actually teach people by showing them what you're doing.
Right. In a manner and a tone that's, teaching. And not, it's not someone's fault if they don't know. Education is just so important.
Do you teach your art? Do you teach children? Do you teach other adults?
I am doing ongoing teaching because I'm part of the Ma's House staff, Jeremy's Ma's House, where I grew up. And
your son, who's also an artist.
Yes, my son.
It's in the family.
Yeah, who founded Ma's House, and so I teach there. I've been teaching beadwork, and we have so many different people who come in, artists who come in from all over the nation and have residencies there. So, yeah, I help to support that, or sometimes I'm in shows, or sometimes there might be the show Outcropping at the Southampton Arts Center that Jeremy had organized last year, or not even last year, the beginning of the year, or at the Southampton African American Museum, another curation. So I like to go to all the different presentations and maybe take kids on a tour. It's just kind of organic. It seems like it happens naturally to just continue teaching. And then I still visit schools and different cultural places to teach. I'll be at the Whaling Museum this month in Cold Spring Harbor. I will be at another school down in Sag Harbor where I share different artifacts. And so teaching, I'm supposed to be retired from the Southampton School District, but as a teacher, I see some my teachers, my colleagues, my former colleagues in the audience, and we know that once you're a teacher, you're always a teacher. You just can't help it.
I guess it's the same like with artists. Once you're an artist, you're just always an artist.
Yes.
You don't stop.
Definitely.
Yeah. No, and it's been a pleasure for us also at the parish to work with Jeremy and now working with you and having that dialogue and you know, highlighting the art that is coming from the Shinnecock Nation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Should I go on and
Yes,
show?
yes.
So far,
Let's show
just
some
have the
more.
sketch.
And then we can also open it up to the audience if
and
they
I
have
never
questions.
did answer your part about what materials that I use because I get off on a tangent, but it was actually outside painting materials that withstand the you know, the heat, the sun, the rain. So yeah, so that was what was recommended to me actually by Jeremy, who had done a mural, and also Brianna had spoke to me about that. So thank you.
You're expert.
Thank you for that guidance.
And we wanted to stay up as long as possible.
Yes,
So yeah,
definitely. So this was the beginning of the process. It was kind of scary going way up on the top, so I felt a little bit safer in the middle. And I really only had 16 days to get this done. So I thought after the third day of just sketching.
16, that's 1/6, right?
1/6.
2 weeks, yeah.
A little over 2 weeks. And so I thought by the third day I better stop painting. And so the first part that I painted was Shinnecock because that connects us. That connects the villa and it connects Shinnecock and the parish. So that was the first thing that I did. And then I started sketching up my aunt, Rebecca Kellis, and then I started putting in the brown for the map. Oh, and so here's one of the early maps that I worked from, and it shows right here, that's the same area, looks a little bit different, but this is, you know, now it's called Hampton Bays, but it shows the occupation, and it shows where the canal, you know, was just Neamuck. You had to carry the canoes over, and it also shows Sugarloaf.
Okay.
And then these early drawings are not really, you know, accurate, but right here would be where our reservation is now.
When was this map made and who made it?
These maps, I have two of them. They are made from the 1800s, and they can be found in that Shinnecock Indian book that I was talking about. I think, let me see, like someone named Beers made those maps. And then there's another one that shows the area and the Great Peconic Bay.
Again, so that was before the canal.
Yes, that was way before the canal. The canal definitely came in much later. Trying to find the name of those map makers. Okay, so in 1836, it was by Colton and Smith, and it was a map division, and it was found in the New York State Public Library. And then the other one was made by, one's from like 1840, the other one's from 1842. It's called the Mather map, and it's very similar. And it was, there's another map that's in that old Shinnecock book, and it's actually from 1797. I don't have that here, but it shows the presence of Shinnecock people in Shinnecock Hills as well. But this, everything from here, like way over here, going toward Eastport, that's where the Unkachog people would be. And then here, well, our area would be all this. This would be our traditional area. And then as the colonists came through, you can see all of these little squares here. Those are people who are starting to live. This is right here. This is the village of Southampton. Right. This is Lake Agawam on here. And then you can just see that people start populating the different areas. But one thing is interesting that I saw on a map, what's now Montauk Highway and Hill Street, that was called Shinnecock Road. So somewhere along the way, I guess from here to here was Shinnecock Road.
Do you know when it was changed?
I'm really not sure exactly when it was changed. I just happened to see it when I was looking. But again, here's where Sugarloaf is, and with ground penetrating radar, it's been determined that there's over 10,000 remains that are up there of our people. Part of it was crematory, so it's not full parts of people, but we've had help with anthropologists and archaeologists who have helped us determine all of that. And then over here with the Shinnecock golf courses and the other golf courses and Sabonic Neck, that's where other burial places have been found. And some of our sacred objects have been found. We don't have them anymore. They're in museums all over the country.
What happens when these objects are being found? Where do they go?
Well, a lot of things were dug up in the early part of the night, in the 1900s. So some of them went to the Smithsonian Institute. Some of them go to New York City. Some have gone to California. Some have been put into scientific studies. Some have gone to dentists, like in the 1900s. And it was like a cool thing. You know how we, kids today, they collect cards and different kind of cards to play games. But it was a cool thing at different points to collect arrowheads, skulls, and then just put them on mantles. So because Shinnecock became federally recognized in 2010, that gave us the initiative, really a power, to go to the different museums and say, do you have, some of our people? Well, we know you do because it's all been documented. So I've actually gone along with the Graves Protection Warrior Society, and we have actually gone to several different places to collect our people. And we have to do a ceremony. Part of it is a reburial, and there is no reburial song. So now we have to make up a burial song. So we have to consult some of our own language from the old Bibles when we were converted to not speak our language anymore. So we have to do our own research in order to reconnect. Right. And then we bring them back. So that's when we work with the Peconic Land Trust. And the Peconic Land Trust actually connected us first with the Sisters of St. Joseph.
I see.
And that was that connection. And further up the island in Brentwood, where they have a very big campus, some remains came from South Hole Museum, but they were not from Shinnecock. They were from Nassau County. So the sisters then welcomed our remains and allowed us to bury them near some of their, most prominent people in their cemetery there.
So there's even more of a connection, and it's kind of coming full circle to have your mural there.
Yes,
with the sisters.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Is there another slide that you would like to talk about? Okay.
Yeah, this is the one that shows the horses, and it was in the winter time, so everything was frozen over. I guess when people first see it, like, why are there horses on the blue Shinnecock Bay? But that's them pulling that part of our church over. And that's far. I was like, it's a little bit of a ride to go from Hampton Bays to get to Southampton, so that must have been quite, quite difficult to move that. And I don't know why it was moved, probably because we were just getting pushed more and more to what's still ancestral land where we are now. That's still part of our territory. But where Shinnecock is actually a peninsula, and it would have been regarded as our summer camp. And then in the wintertime, we would have pulled back into the woods. And then here's a close-up. There's a baby Benjamin there, and he's holding a little doll that's made out of corn husk, no-face doll. Ben, did you hear me calling your name? And then I have the eagle feathers here. That's part of the prayer. Brianna helped me with that one. And then this is a brother and sister. And this is Justine Kellis. And I love to look at the old photographs of Shinnecock people. And there was a photograph that was actually appeared of her and her brother Elliot, and it was from the Wunne Ohke collection in New York City, and it was before World War I, and they wanted to showcase the native people of North America. And she actually, her story was sad. She was old enough where she did get married to her first husband, who was actually David Martine's great-grandfather or great-great-grandfather.
David Bun Martine?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yep.
And but she passed away, I believe it was because of the flu epidemic during that time in the early 1900s. But the whole idea of putting her in there was, it's a return. It's a return to good ground, to Nyamak. So it's like her spirit and her brother there helping her in the dugout canoe. And then here, this is the sugar kelp that is being reintroduced to the area. And so that's a kind of little a nod to the sugar kelp. And I really don't know what sugar kelp looks like because I am not out there getting the sugar kelp. So I was just online trying to see what it looked like with photos. And then my niece Danielle came over, and she's a sugar kelp farmer, so she's the one who helped me get the right colors going there for the sugar kelp. And then we always have to have our little turtles because that goes along with the creation story as well.
Can you tell the creation story of the turtle?
Yeah, the creation story goes like this, that once there were just people who lived in the sky, and there was this great turtle out on the ocean. The turtle was all alone, and one day a woman, she fell through a hole in the sky, but she was pregnant. But luckily, she had a pouch with her, and the pouch had seeds in it. And when she fell, some birds came, and they saved her from breaking her neck when she fell down. And they guided her, to the back of this lonely giant sea turtle. And so they became friends. And the problem was she did have the seeds to survive, but in her pouch. However, she had no soil. So she had to become friends with the sea otters and all kinds of little water creatures who could dive down enough to the depths to bring out dirt, try to find dirt from the bottom of the ocean or near some shore. And they gave it to her. And so she planted the corn, beans, and squash. And that's why sometimes North America is called Turtle Island. You'll hear Native people refer to it as Turtle Island because it's our beginning of the creation story. That's one version of the creation story anyway. There's other ones as well that you'll hear. And then also, I hadn't really known what I was going to do with the sides, but because they were brick, I decided to make them into wampum. And wampum comes from the quahog shell that's found along the shores, and they say the Shinnecock wampum is like the best. Like other nations will say like the Wampanoags and the Narragansetts, they'll say, oh no, we have the best. But then the Shinnecock people and the people who live along Long Island will say, no, we have the best wampum because of the color purple that can be found. And a lot of people associate wampum with currency. And it did turn into currency when the colonists came, but before that, it was used to, certain strings of wampum would signify if someone had passed away, or to tell a story about, oh, there's going to be a celebration, we're going to get some whales, and we want to invite your village to come and join us. And then those wampum belts have been made by the Haudenosaunee, the Six Nations. They don't have wampum shells up there, so they had to. That's a long history of trading with our people along the coast.
So it's very specific to here.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
So, let me see. Oh, I just have Weetahmoe. That's my native name. My grandmother gave me that name from the Hassanimisco Nation. my dad's side, and that means, since I guess it's the baby of the family, that means sweetheart. And then I put a little bit of a wampum bracelet on her wrist as well. And then there's the corn, beans, and squash. That was our staple, planted here, traded with the colonists to help them survive all around our villages. And along there with the right whale at the bottom, my cousin Rainbow Hill came over and helped me out getting the corn, beans, and squash ready for the mural. And then also, Waban came and she was helping me with the map and painting the water. Her and Jeremy teamed up on that part down there, along with Avery. Everybody helped touch up something, or if I missed something, everybody helped. And then that's a close-up of our Aunt Becky. She was also a seamstress, and I guess she's probably like a hero. Would be one of my heroes, because she was a school teacher, and she had experienced such sadness in her life because her dad and her brother were two individuals who actually died on their Circassian.
Oh,
Yeah, so she also lived to be like almost 99 years old, and was still making her own clothing, and was still making her own garden. And those are all things, these days after coming through COVID, that we all need to learn how to do.
Absolutely. We can learn a lot from
yes,
that. Yeah.
we can learn a lot from the old ways. Yeah. And that's just a more close-up of the Canoe Place Chapel there. I wanted to bridge what was old with what was new. And then Kelly came along and put the fresh flowers in there to bring it to life as well. And then that's that man is Abraham Cuffey, and he attended the Canoe Place Chapel. He was buried in back of it along with his family. I mentioned that earlier. So even though it's a return to Nyamuck, a return to good ground, it feels like we really never left, because our places and our people are still there.
What is your hope for the future, for that place and in general?
Just to really reconnect and to use it, as a building bridge to see, what else can we learn from each other? What can we make sustainable? How we can work together? Just to really take care of Shinnecock Bay and our land. There's so much of it being dug up. So my hope every day is to just be more respectful and figure out ways that we can preserve the things that we love. That's why we're all here, because of the beauty of the place. But if we keep, digging it up and building upon it, that becomes more and more difficult. And that's just a little bit of a close-up. When you go to see it in person, at least you can see it now all close up. And the Nyamuck of the man and the woman carrying the dugout canoe is actually part of our Nyamuck Land Trust seal or logo that I made. Oh, and then over here, on one side, I have the wolves, or those would be like half dog, half wolf, that were our pets, and that was one of the first things that the colonists got rid of. And then another thing was to convert us so that we didn't speak our language anymore. And another thing was to convert us so we didn't really have our different religious ceremonies anymore. We had to become missionary people and Christians. So. That's why we have so many deer everywhere, because we have no wolves to...
I was just going to say, it must be connected to that.
Yes, it's all connected.
Yeah, no predator.
And then this is more a full piece of everything. There's that little village here with a wigwam and a woman who's tanning a deer hide. The women who are over here doing the cooking. And then the man who's wearing this shirt, this design, has a Thunderbird on it. And this symbol was actually found in the area of Sabonic, where the Bull's Head area is. And I think that's part of the Smithsonian collection right now. It was a little shard of clay, a clay pot. So I wanted to introduce that because that's part of our history, the thunder beings, that would be part of our prayers. And we do have one of our clan who are from Shinnecock, the Thunderbird family in the audience. So that's part of also our relatives named after and honoring the Thunderbird. And then that kind of goes along with having the eagle feathers here, because that's part of, those birds that fly so close to the Creator who take our prayers up. And that's why in Native American regalia, you'll see like either the plumes of the young women who are the fancy dancers who wear them, or you'll see them in the bustles of the men with the feathers in the back or on their shoulders, or part of their headdresses will wear the eagle feathers, and of course the chiefs as well.
Thank you. This is such a rich history that you're telling with this artwork. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And I want to open it up to the audience if anyone has any questions for Denise. Yes.
Right now, there's about 700 people who live on Shinnecock, but our list goes all over the world. We even have people who live in as far as Australia, sometimes Antarctica at times. So it's about 2,000. There's actually about maybe a little bit over 2,000 who are actually enrolled, who are on the our actual enrollment. And that was based on family Bibles, a lot of family Bibles. And also, the village of Southampton, the town of Southampton, did a very good job of keeping track of our names and all these different documents and deeds, so it can be found that way as well.
What are the requirements to be enrolled?
Well, when I was in high school, in Southampton, one of my teachers, who was a social studies teacher, Mr. Conklin, gave us an assignment if we wanted to look up our genealogy. So at the time, one of our membership, Eugene Cuffey, was in charge of compiling our family history at the community center. So I went to the community center and asked, could I do a family tree of my own? And it became clear that why just do my own when there's all these brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles? So you have to go back to that history that he was originally compiling, and that was in preparation for federal recognition. And one of our historians, Lois Marie Hunter, or Princess Noadana, she is actually one of my mom's first cousins, and another woman hero, a teacher, a historian, who kept the Bibles, and she always taught us back in the 70s when I was a teenager before she passed away, you have to go back to either the Cuffey, Bunn, or Kellis families. You have to be able to establish that bloodline. So that's one of the ways to be part of in those Bibles and to connect that way is very important, and that's how you establish it.
It's interesting that the Bible played an essential role in having these records and also the language, right?
Yes, yes. In the early 1600s, there was such a push with the colonizers to make us speak the language, the English language, instead of our language, that they actually did a whole Bible. Kakanu de Long Island was one of the natives from Long Island who helped to translate the Bible. And then there was another person up on where my dad's reservation, and they also converted the Algonquin Bible.
Interesting. Are there any other questions? Yes.
Right now we have the peninsula is about 800 acres, but quite a lot of it is marshland, so you can't build. It's great for when, we have like flooding going on because the marsh is still in place. But we are also, on the other hand, we're susceptible because Shinnecock is so, low lying. And then we have additional territory still that we were able to hold on to, and that's Westwoods. And that comes from, it doesn't quite go to, well, if the canal was dug out here, there's a community here, and then that's not ours. And then it's like a horse, they say it's like a thigh of a cow shape that comes out to what would be, not Montauk Highway, but Sunrise Highway. So Sunrise Highway would be somewhere here. And then the land, is whittled away and whittled away and whittled away. So it used to be a lot, but now it's just a little, maybe another, 100 acres or less than 100 acres, but enough to put our monuments on.
Should we go there?
Yeah.
Another question. I was just thinking about that. How could you narrate the story of this mural?
Yeah. I mean, after it was done and stepping back, because painting it, I couldn't even really see what it was going to look like because the scaffolding was, in the way. So after stepping back and looking at it, and it looks like it's, bound, Shelley, then it's like, oh, it looks like you just open it up and start reading this story. And then I would start in the beginning. I would start talking about Nehemiah, just like I told you tonight, all the different elements. Try to do a timeline.
Exactly.
I don't know.
There's a project.
To any editors and publishers.
Yep.
Yeah, it would be great to do a book, definitely.
Yep.
Yeah.
One more question? Yeah.
It's outdoor paint, house paint, but it's a special brew of it, a special mixture that is supposed to help to fight the elements. And there was discussions going on, especially with Sister Carrie, who was there, all the time checking in to make sure that everything was, working out there if I needed anything. And that's one of the things that she asked, if there's something that can be maybe sprayed. So someone did come over and said that something could be like a polyurethane, but it would have to be a very light mist that could go over it. So I think they might be considering how they can preserve it. And if they can't, then I'll just be over there because we love this is just a St. Joseph. I'll just be over there painting and touching up.
The eternal project.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Denise, for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.